Hey, Marisha.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm so excited to have you here with me tonight. Number one, to just share your testimony, to be able to encourage others, but to also, to help me to just bring education around this topic of domestic abuse and resources, perhaps, just giving some practical tips to individuals who may be in a domestic violence situation, or it could be family members watching tonight. And they have someone that they know, right, in a domestic violence, situation. And perhaps this will help them to be able to help those family members. So for those of you who are joining in and watching the replay, I just want to thank you. For those of you who join me every couple of weeks, you know what to do. Please send Marisha some love. Let her know that you are there watching. So for those of you who do not know me, I'm Lena Lassiter. I'm the founder and president of Forever Healed. We are a nonprofit, and what we do is we help those who are suffering a loss of any kind. We want to help them to restore, reclaim, and more importantly, to recover. We are humble partners with the Richmond Police Department, their victim witness program, and we just renewed our contract with the Sheriff's Office, so we are excited about that. We also train in corporate America on empathy and grief. So I'm excited again about our topic tonight, domestic violence, to bring awareness, education, resources around this topic. I have with me a very special guest tonight because not only is she one of my closest family members, but she has been someone that has inspired me through her journey. So she's going to share her testimony. So I have Marisha Harris with me tonight. So let's see. Hi, Kiana. Thank you so much for joining us. Looks like you are on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, Minister Ross. Thank you for joining again and always supporting. So as always, as we're talking about this topic tonight, I want you to ask questions. We want this to be interactive as much as possible. We don't want to just talk at you. Now, I do want to formally introduce Marisha to you, for those of you who don't know her. But she's a native of Richmond, Virginia. She currently works for Cardinal Health as a consultant, sales enablement. Ms. Harris is a proud wife and mother of 3 young ladies. She and her family reside in Chesterfield, Virginia. She is a survivor of domestic violence from a previous marriage of 11 years. She has served and led several committees that advocated for domestic violence survivors that ministered and assisted women in the local community. She was also a member of the Virginia Sexual and Domestic Violence Action Alliance and a member of the Survivor Caucus. Marisha has taken several training classes through different agencies to gain knowledge, to share, and to empower women that have gone through domestic violence. Marisha has embraced the assignment that God has given her to share her story with women, to empower them, to let them know that they are not alone and they too can survive. Her desire is to be a witness to all that they can be strong and free and never be bound by anyone again. Yeah. I love that.
Yes. That's all of me. That's definitely all of me.
Wow. To be strong and free and never bound again. Mm-hmm. That's powerful. Hi, Arthur Pat. Thank you so much again for your ongoing support. I love you so much. Thank you for joining us tonight. So Marisha, I just want to share some facts on domestic violence, and then I just want to jump right in with you sharing whatever the Lord has put on your heart to share tonight. So as we discussed last week, everyone, domestic violence is any behavior used to gain power and control over a spouse, a partner, a girl, boyfriend, or an intimate family member. Domestic violence is the leading cause of injury to women, more than car accidents, more than muggings, rapes combined. Half of all of homeless women and children in shelters are fleeing from a domestic violence situation. Abusive or coercive behaviors may include, but are not limited to, physical assaults, verbal assaults and threats, intimidation, use of weapons, isolation, destruction of property, and even sexual manipulation and control over economic resources, right? So sometimes it's your finances is what's kind of keeping you bound. And the CDC reports that more than 1 in 3 women and about 1 in 3 men in the United States they experience intimate partner violence in their lifetime. I mean, that's astounding, Marisha.
Yes.
And Black women, it is said, is 35% more likely to experience domestic violence than white women. Mm-hmm. And while people at all income levels, so let's be very clear, may experience domestic violence, those earning lower incomes experience domestic violence at a higher rate than those with higher household incomes. So women with household incomes of less than $7,500 a year are 7 times as likely as women, to be abused than women with household incomes over $75,000 a year. So it is estimated that in one year in Virginia, 2,000 women seeking shelter from domestic violence, or actually they said they were turned away, Marisha, due to a lack of space or resources. And that just, my goodness, that just hurt my heart to read that. And then domestic or partner violence results in nearly 1,300 deaths and 2 million injuries every year in the United States. Mm-hmm. More than 3 women are killed by husbands or boyfriends every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to touch on one of those statistics you were saying in Virginia, and not just so much in Virginia, but across the different states in our United States. The resources, right? There's a stigma when it comes to being a domestic violence a victim. Most of the time, the women leave more than multiple times, but they never have a place to go, right? Budget-wise, state budget-wise, the resources have been diminished so much over the years. And then a lot of times people are ashamed. Women are ashamed. They're coming here with their family, they're coming with their kids, and they don't want to admit it, right? Or they want to feel like they're a failure, or they have to tell their jobs to relocate. So it's a lot of factors to go into that. But our system is broken when it comes to helping women get in them places to go. They're limited, very limited.
Wow. Yeah, because you think about that, 2,000 women with 2,000 individuals, right? They don't have proper shelter, or they don't have anywhere to go.
Right.
A lot of times, those of us on the outside looking in will say things like, to your point, right? Why do they stay? Mm-hmm. Or they just keep going back. Well, they don't have a safe place to go. Sometimes they don't have anywhere to go.
Right.
So they end up, in that same situation. Yeah.
Same situation. Yeah. Or to the next one, right?
Right.
They're not having healed from the first relationship, so they're still attracting or still seeking that love, and it draws the same kind of relationship. So it's like a broken cycle, right?
Yeah. So. Yeah. Hi, Tanya. It looks like you have a question already. All right, y'all bring them in. Mm-hmm. Do you think a lot of women stay because they want their children to be raised in a 2-parent household?
Yes, that is definitely part of my testimony. I was a young mother with 2 young girls. At the age I did decide to leave, they were 5 and not even 1 year old. And so for me, being in my mid to late 20s, I was like, where am I going to go with 2 little kids? How I'm going to make it financially with 2 little kids at that time, not making a lot of money. So, and then, you get married, or you're with this person and you're like, I want my children to be raised by a mom and dad. As far as my reasoning was because my parents were divorced, and I knew what it was to being raised by a single mom. No one wants to put their children back into that same cycle, right? We want a family unit, and that's not a good, healthy family unit for your children. But that's one of the reasons why a lot of women do stay.
Yeah. I agree, Marisha. And, and sometimes, right, like for even my situation where you didn't grow up with your mom and dad. So you feel like you want to show your kids something different. Mm-hmm. So you stay. So Tanya, this is a great question, because what we don't realize is that when we stay in that abusive relationship, you're teaching your son and daughter how to relate, right, to that opposite sex. Also, it's very traumatic.
Yeah.
So, when you stay and, so your children are watching how the one who's being abused, they're watching how they deal with that, but then they're also watching the abuser. So you have to understand that you are educating your children, you're teaching them, through your actions, you're saying, well, I'm staying so that they can have this 2-parent home. But to your point, Marisha, is it healthy?
Yeah.
Are you teaching them that this is what you do when you get upset?
Mm-hmm.
You hit and you argue and you manipulate and you control, right? And then are you teaching them and you just stay?
Just stay. Yeah. And then you don't realize the dramatic influence that the kids have to deal with, not only at that age, but at older age, right? How do they deal with that hurt? How do they deal with that relationship with that parent that it is the abuser and who's being abused, right? You have lack of respect. You have lack of knowing how to deal in a relationship manageably. You don't know how to communicate effectively. You don't know to deal with that hurt and that grief, because you're grieving both your parents. You're grieving because that's your mom or that's your dad. Either one of them being hurt, one is being the hurter. So it's a lot. And the kids have to not only deal with that, but they take that to school, right? So they have to deal with all those emotions, trying to not only deal with the emotions at home, but take that to school and be in a learning, effective environment. It's just like a rolling hill. It just goes down, down, and down.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Well, Marisha, we're going to just have you share whatever you want to share as far as your testimony is concerned with us.
Sure. So my relationship with my previous husband started early. I was a teenager, 17. And so it started off, like any normal relationship. And then, I would say drastically slowly, it became more manipulative, more where I became more isolated from my friends and family, and just I could only be around him, and he had to know like where I was all the time. Back then we didn't have cell phones, so we did have beepers, so beeping you, asking me where am I, or just manipulation. I would just say totally out manipulation. And then eventually the physical abuse came, because maybe I didn't say something in a right tone that he thought was the right tone, or I wasn't back in a certain time as I say I was going to be back, because he thought I was lying, or I was doing something I wasn't supposed to be, doing. So that relationship actually lasted from 17 to 29. I think I was 29 years old when I decided to leave. And I know people say, well, did you tell your parents? Eventually I did tell my parents, but that's something that I did not tell them until later on. I would isolate my own self because I didn't want my family members to see me, with bruises or being hurt or crying, because then they would know. Again, me protecting him because I didn't want him to get in trouble. It was something that was within me that I thought this person was going to change once we got married, right? Because we got married by the time I was 21. And I thought, okay, if I marry him, things would change. But we can't change people. People have to change themselves, right? So that mentality that we have, and I'm going to say as women, and maybe men have the same mentality too. I can only speak from my point of view. We think that if we can change a man, that he's going to stay, his actions are going to stop, and it does not. It does not. So we got married. I got married at 21. And the abuse was more, once you got married, because now you're actually committed to this person. Now I have a house with this person, and we're commingling money and bills and stuff. And so when things are not right financially, hey, that's one strike there. Or if you didn't cook, if I didn't cook this certain way, that was a strike right there. Or if someone called at the wrong time when we were talking, and he didn't have my undivided attention. So there are so many factors of being abused. I would say manipulation, emotion, and emotional abuse are probably the first two red flags in a relationship, and that's definitely what we need to look out for. So if you have a friend who's starting to like draw back and not give you a call or not responding back to you, you might want to go check up on him or her. Start asking him or her questions. And so that was one of my saving graces. I had family members and friends who constantly checked on me throughout the midst of the 11 years. Eventually we had a daughter, and my oldest daughter was the one I think that probably noticed it the most. You think little kids don't notice, but they know when mom or dad is sad. They know when mom and dad are mad. They can feel the energy in the room, in the house.
Yes.
And so I believe that affected her some, growing up as a young child until she was 5 years old. Then from there, things, you just learn how to deal with it, right? I can't explain it. You just learn how to cope with it. You try to cover up your bruises as much as you can. But people can kind of tell things are off, but you have to have people in your life that's going to call it out. If you don't, it's going to continue. You have to have, I think with me, you needed to I didn't know this then, but now I can advocate to women and tell them, if something is going on, you need to have someone that you can call in the middle of the night, in the middle of the day, and give them a code word. Just, or text them now, because we have all this technology now. You can text, you can IM, you can messenger, and send them a code word so they'll know, okay, this person is in distress. I need to get someone there, And so I think technology is wonderful when we can use it to the good. And I think women have that now. I wound up having my second daughter. By the time I had my second daughter, the physical abuse had diminished a lot. It was more verbal, right? I'm not going to hit you today, but I'm going to hit the wall. Well, that's just the same, I'm going to break something. And so you're scared. I'm scared. We're intimidated. The kids are intimidated throughout the time. And then there was a time in me, I guess by that time I was like, I'm worthy of so much more. I wound up talking more to my family, talking more to my parents. And I wound up leaving. My oldest daughter, she had turned 5. That was actually her birthday. She had turned 5 years old. I see there's a question. Was he older than you, or was he the same age? He was only 4 years older than me. So age doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's young, old, or the age difference, but he was only 4 years older than me. So I don't know if that had a factor. I don't think so. I just think that he just didn't know how to communicate effectively. He didn't know how to be in a relationship effectively at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said a lot, because I do think a lot of times we feel like, and I do think it's more so with women that we can change, individuals. I think there's also this misconception that, well, once we get married, right, if I marry this person, then things will change. And that's not at all the case. A lot of times, again, you will see it kind of escalate once you have made that commitment.
Yeah.
But we can't change people.
No.
We honestly can't. So this is a great segue, Marisha, just into, and you started talking about some of the warning signs. But I want to tell everybody who's watching with us tonight that every relationship is different. Yeah. So the signs will definitely vary. However, a few typical signs that I'm aware of, Marisha, and again, you can jump in if I'm missing something, but jealousy. I know for me, I experienced that jealousy, that possessiveness, wants to be with you all the time, or to your point, wanting to know where you are, right, all the time. And let me say something about this, ladies, and especially for our younger girls who are watching, or teenagers. See, sometimes we think that's cute.
Right.
Right? That,
right.
Oh, they just want to be with me all the time, and want to know where I am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. That's a sign.
Yes.
Controlling behavior, just quick to get involved, and stuff. Unrealistic expectations. Isolation is one that you had, talked about earlier. And then there's no accountability.
Yep.
Right? For their actions. There's no accountability for how you feel. And then you mentioned this too, Marisha, like if I say the wrong thing, if I cook the wrong thing, right? So they're just hypersensitive.
Right.
You know, to everything. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely, and for me, like you said, young people, I was 17, right? So that was my first serious relationship. It was cute. Oh, he just want to know where I was, you know, and I had strong friends at that time, and they were like, no, you know, they were mad at me because I was letting him dictate, you know. So for young people, listen to your friends, you know, if they notice the red flags, have your ear, you know, have your eyes open, have your ear open, and just notice those red flags. And I know it's hard with young love. I get it. But anybody, especially like during this time, like I said, with your cell phones, if he wants to check your cell phones, if he's trying to check your text and wants you to share your location, nah. Yeah, you know, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
Right. Yeah. You know, young folks, again, Marisha, that was just a great piece of advice. Listen to your friends, because the people who are on the outside can typically see some things that we don't necessarily see, you know, in your family, and we kind of shun it sometimes, you know, oh, they jealous, or they this, or they that, right? Or trying to tell me what to do. But I can remember a girlfriend saying to me, that dude is crazy. Like everywhere we go, he shows up.
Right.
You know, and I'm just thinking, oh, well, that's just cute, right? He just, you know. And they were like, no, he's crazy. Everywhere we go, this joker shows up. So just be mindful of that. Be mindful of that, ladies.
Right.
And then Marisha, I found this article online. It was just talking about just some safety planning. So I thought that was good. I'm like, okay, because we talk about the warning signs or the red flags. We talk about, and we will talk about, because I want you to talk too about leaving, right? How do you do that safely? Right. But when I saw this safety plan, and I was like, wow. So while you're in it, you know, it just talked about some things that you can do to stay safe. So some things, Marisha, they talked about was just kind of knowing your abuser's red flags, right? So just being alert for signs and clues that they may be getting a little upset or irritated, that, you know, they may explode in anger. And then they just said, you know, come up with several believable reasons that you can leave your house.
Right.
So think about reasons that you can leave your house, whether it's during the day or at night.
Right. So you can, if you have a little small child, oh, I have to go get Pampers, or the baby needs milk. You know, just something as simple as that, right? And of course, take the child with you. You know, say, you know, maybe say, you know, I know you're tired, you had a hard day. Me and little Johnny are gonna go to the store and get some Pampers. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
You know, something as simple as that. And also with making that safety plan, if there's a way you can have an extra bag with all of your important documents, like a copy of your license, birth certificate, you know, anything of importance, then maybe it's at a friend's house or something. Because you don't want to, some people say leave it in your car, but most 9 out of 10 times that spouse will have a key to your car, right? So you want to leave it somewhere that they won't know where it is. So that's one of the tips definitely in your safety plan. And maybe have an extra, sometimes they have the prepaid cell phones, you know, with that as well. Because once you leave, you don't want that person to be able to track you, right?
Right. I was going to ask you about that. Do you think it's a great idea to have like a second, you know, cell phone? Because again, you know, they could be checking your text messages or, you know, finding your location and looking at your emails or whatever the case may be. So even if you're looking on your computer trying to find like safety or shelter, I would recommend that you do that somewhere else. Like don't do that on your computer at home.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So that was good, Marisha. So yeah, have some important papers and things of that nature over at a friend's house. Again, you do hear a lot of people will say, put it in your car, but you're right. They will typically will have a key to your car. And again, when they're controlling, you never know. Again, this is not saying that all of them would do that, but most of the time they're looking through your stuff.
Right.
They're going to look through your car, right? So know your abusers, red flags. Also identify safe areas of the house. Know where to go if your abuser attacks or an argument starts. So, and they talk about how you should avoid like small spaces.
Areas.
Yeah. So you want to find a space where there's a window, there's a door, right? There's some kind of exit. You want to make sure that you
have a way of escape.
Yeah. And you said this, I believe, earlier, Marisha, come up with the code word. Yeah, so establish this code word or phrase. It's some type of signal that you can use to let your children, family members, friends, neighbors, whoever know that you are in danger and that they should call the police.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about warning signs. We talked about safety planning. So Marisha, let's just talk a little bit about our escape plan.
So my escape plan was not the best because then, I didn't know that. So that particular day, I'm just going to share a little bit of my testimony. You can go into what you have, Lena. That particular day, I came home late. He was mad and he was just yelling. And he specifically said to me, I'm not going to hit you today. I'm just going to torture you. So I knew that was going to be emotional, right? And so I went into the girls' room and I was folding clothes. And I happened to have a work cell phone by that time. And what I did was I called my mom and put the phone on speaker so she could hear in the background. And I let it stay like, I had it like buried under the clothes, right? So he couldn't see it. My back was turned to him. And I let her hear maybe 2 or 3 minutes and then I shut it off. And then I did the same thing to my dad's house. So that way they could hear and that would get them to know this, hey, something is going on, right? And so, and the reason why I did this, let me back up and then I'll digress back to where I was. The reason why I did that is because by that time I could see my daughters, they were in the closet hiding. So I could see that they were scared and I couldn't protect them to my fullest by that time. And so once I had did that, I would think maybe to me, it seemed like the time just went so fast. I would say maybe 10, 15 minutes, my phone is ringing, right? And so I was like, we need to get the phone because I knew it had to been somebody. It had to be my dad. It had to be somebody. And it was. And my dad was like, put him on the phone. So he got on the phone. He was like, hey, open the door. And he wouldn't open the door. So finally he hung up and they called back again. And he says, hey, you need to open the door. The police are here. If you don't open the door, they're coming in. So they kind of coaxed him. He, did go to the door. And as they opened the door, they were telling me to come out. And I was like, no. So he opened the storm door and they wound up getting him out. So my escape plan was totally different than some women's that might have a more thought out plan or some women have more drastic turns. Things could have went another way because he did have a weapon in the home. They didn't know that. But once they got him out of the house, the police came in and assessed the damage that was in the house. And they told me, you need to get your stuff and you don't need to come back here.
Wow.
And that day was no physical towards me. It was just holes in the wall, and from what my parents could hear, on the phone. So definitely have a thought out escape plan as much as you can, but there might not be, you might have one written down, but it might not might not go that way.
Yeah. That's true. And but to be told that I'm going to torture you today, like right. I can't imagine like what was going through your mind at that point, right? For someone to say they're going to torture you. Goodness, Marisha, to me, I would have thought that was a whole nother level, of abuse and not knowing what was going to happen to you, right. That night. Yeah.
I can truly say, looking back in hindsight, the Lord was covering me because I didn't know. And I can't explain. I'm sure there was some fear there. But I also had a sense of peace because I knew this was going to be the last time I was going to be there. And I can't explain that.
Mm-hmm.
And even now sharing my testimony, with women, God also shields me from some things that I might not ever remember.
Yeah.
So he, pieces and pieces to share with women. So just know that you can be healed, totally, from the abuse, and you can recover.
Absolutely.
Because I left that day, I left with, nothing but my kids' clothes. I came back, days later to get a few things, but I left my home. I left mostly everything, furniture and everything. All that can be replaced. My life and my children's life can't be replaced.
Come on. That's a great point. And I think it's interesting that you said, well, my escape plan, may not be this traditional escape plan, but guess what? The first thing is be ready to leave at a moment's notice.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, Marisha, like even in your situation, you have to be ready to go at a moment's notice.
Right.
And I think that you found that peace because you know what? You had laid the stigma aside. You had laid the shame down. You made that phone call. And once you made that phone call, there was no going back.
That's right.
Right? Because now I done called my mom and my dad, and they truly know. If they didn't know what was going on, now they know.
Right.
So you knew at that point that there was no going back.
Yeah.
Also, when you're ready to leave at a moment's notice, whether you're, again, male or female, because males are abused as well. So I want to, again, be mindful and be respectful of that.
Yes.
But we talked about the car situation. So you want to keep the car fueled up and facing the driveway exit, okay? Mm-hmm. You want to have a spare key to the car. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because sometimes, again, if you're in a controlling relationship, they may take your keys. Mm-hmm. So you want to have a spare key somewhere hidden where you can get to it pretty quickly, or just leave the driver door unlocked. Mm-hmm. Marisha said this earlier, have your emergency clothing, your cash, important phone numbers, documents stashed in a safe place. She recommended that we do that at a friend's house, for example, versus kind of leaving it at home or in your car. And then, you know what? We always practice if there's a fire. Right? We have to practice your escape.
Yes.
Always practice your escape. You want to rehearse your escape plan so that you know exactly what to do if you are under attack from your abuser. Because usually when you're in that situation, sometimes you freeze. Mm-hmm. But if you rehearse your escape plan, then your mind knows, okay, this is happening, and you know exactly what to do. So practice the escape plan. Yeah. And then you want to make sure that you have a list of emergency contacts. Mm-hmm. Try to memorize, some emergency contacts, because again, if your phone gets taken, you don't have your contacts. So try to memorize, some of your emergency contacts.
Definitely.
All right, let's see. We got some comments popping in. Do y'all have good communication now?
No. No. So as time went on, I think in the beginning of us separating, he wanted us to get back together. And I just stood my ground. I wound up moving back home with my parents for 3 months, getting myself together. I wound up getting my own place with me and the girls. He would come get the girls, and I don't know how many people know this. In the state of Virginia, no one has custody of your child until you actually go file for custody of your child. So I made sure that happened. I went to court and filed custody for my kids. So if anything happened to them when he wouldn't bring them back, I had my paperwork, and I made sure the school had a copy of the paperwork as well. Then years passed, and like I said, he would be in and out of the kids' life. But now at the age of they're 26 and 22, there's no relationship with him and them, and we don't have a need to talk. I mean, if I see him, we'll speak. I have asked him in the past, why, and I don't think I really got a true answer. But that's okay. I'm good with that. I mean, he's remarried. I'm remarried. I'm good. He's good. So, no hard feelings. But it takes a lot of work, right? There's, I I know there were some triggers, going into another relationship, because you have to realize that this person that I'm with now is not the same person that my ex-husband is, So
Right.
there are going to be triggers. There was nightmares. Sometimes I wake up in a cold sweat thinking that, this person was after me, so there's definitely a process of healing there for sure.
Yeah, that's good, Marisha. And author Pat said that, praise God, you are still here.
Yes.
We are grateful. Hi, cousin Darlette. Thank you for joining us tonight. Let's see. Did you get counseling?
So I did get some counseling. But again, with me being so young and not knowing where to go, or not having the resources that's out there now then I did not get the counseling that is available now. I did a lot of prayer. I got committed into the church. And I started talking about it. That was my best counseling, is when I started talking about it and start telling my testimony and start sharing with other women. That was a part of my counseling.
Yeah.
And again, everybody's different. I'm sorry.
No.
Again, everybody's counseling is different. But I would say with the resources now, there's no reason why people can't get counseling.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you're right. Everybody's journey is going to be different. Mm-hmm. Their healing journey is going to be different. Their circumstances are going to be different. So the way that we heal is also going to be individual and unique. And we tell our clients that, all the time. But one thing I always share with my clients is that talking about it, mm-hmm. that is the first step, mm-hmm. like getting it out. Because a lot of times we suppress, what we have gone through. Sometimes you still allow that stigma and that shame, mm-hmm. To kind of follow you, so you don't talk about it. But opening up about it and talking about it, and see that same thing the enemy would try to use against you, right, and to shun you and to keep you bound and suppressed. Nope, I'm going to talk about it because I'm going to take power over this thing.
Yes. And
as long as you're talking about it to be free, and not talking about it, because you guys have heard me say this before, to kind of be married to that mm-hmm. right? Because what you have said was, no hard feelings, I have forgiven, I have moved on. Marisha, you know what? He don't know why he did that, because again, right. it was something probably, in his childhood, right? Not understanding how to deal with that anger, but she said, hey, you know what? I moved on. All is good. And she has a wonderful husband now. She was definitely restored. All right, let's see. Do you think a lot of people don't talk about because they're afraid to be judged?
Of course. I was, here I am, my family, my friends said, oh, you're too young to get married, and I'm like, they don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, I was, right? At least to him anyway, so yeah, I was afraid I was gonna be judged. Here I am, I have a home at a young age, had a nice home, a nice car, a daughter, the American dream, right? Or what at least what we think, right? So yeah, definitely very ashamed and felt like I was going to be judged. But again, when that light bulb clicks, or whatever that thing is in your heart or your mind, all that is like, whatever, it's okay. I don't care what people say. I don't care what they think about me, because I know what I need. I know my worth, right? And when you know your worth and what you deserve, what you're deserving of in a relationship, forget about everybody else. And then everything else is going to come in turn, right? And like Belina says, the relationship I am in now, I'll be married with 19 years this year. Everything's going to be restored. Forget that furniture, forget that car, forget that house. He's going to restore it all. He's going to restore it all doublefold. I'm telling you what I know.
Yeah.
It was at a point that I moved out on my own. I'm going to say probably making $12, $13 an hour. And I tell people this to this day. I don't know how I made it. Was making $12, $13 an hour. I had 2 kids in daycare and was paying rent and a car note and was not getting child support, but I made it. Nothing ever went lacking. So you can do it.
You can do it. You can do it. And I love what you said. Know your worth. I mean, that's a whole nother session. But listen, because we talked about, the warning signs, your safety plan, your escape plan. But how do you stay out of it? Marisha, you stay out of it by knowing your worth. And I share with you, you guys before, right? My testimony with my ex-husband, and I used to say this. This is not about Midnight, it's about Marisha, but I have to share this because I used to say this, Marisha. What's wrong with him, right? Like I do this, I do that, I do this, and I tell you that voice from heaven came down and said, "What's wrong with you?"
That's right. What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you that
Right.
you feel that this is the best that I have for you? What's wrong with you that you feel you deserve this?
Right.
What's wrong with you? So understanding your worth, you won't be asking like, what's wrong with them? You'll be saying, you know what?
Right.
I deserve better than this.
That's right.
This is not a good gift for me. Right. This isn't even the person that was chosen for me. I chose this person.
That's right.
You know, but it's okay because I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to know my worth, and I'm going to teach people how to treat me moving forward.
That's right.
So, yes,
absolutely.
Know your
worth. Yeah.
She said, my friend escape plan was she had to wait for her husband to go to work. So all of us friends and family were on the ready with the U-Haul, yes, to move her out. Her husband for her tooth and nail over the divorce. She is now remarried, yes, and happy. There you go.
You all were awesome friends. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Y'all had the U-Haul ready, Miss Pat. Y'all had that joker gassed up and ready to go. Tanya said, congratulations. Yeah. And then, yes, amen. Know your worth. You have to know your worth because you have to remember you don't want to go back.
Right.
And going back, it takes healing. And that healing is going to teach you to love yourself. Because see, when you love yourself, you're not going to abuse yourself. You're not going to allow anybody else, to do that.
And then you have to treat your kids. Like I said, I had 2 little girls. So I had to treat, know your worth. So yeah, you definitely, it's not always all about you.
She said, yes, we were on the ready. Yeah. People need people like you, Pat, who are going to be on the ready. Because Marisha, I don't know about you. And again, I think our stories were a little bit different because I kept saying, I'm going to leave, I'm going to leave, I'm going to leave. And the family was probably sick of me. Like, I just kept saying it. But then it got to a point where I just was like, nope, I'm going to get this plan in action. I'm not going to say anything. And before they know it, Lena Laster is going to be gone.
Yeah.
And I was.
Yeah. I had an inkling that I was trying to get ready because actually I was trying to wait. It was like April. So I was trying to wait to June till my daughter got out of school. But the Lord had another plan in store. He was like, nope, you're leaving in April. So, I was, and when I was getting ready, I had started taking like my name off the electric bill. I had started stashing money away, so I was getting things in order. It just happened faster than what I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. So Tanya says, do you have a way someone can reach out to you?
So Valina can give you my my information.
I will share the information if you need it. You guys know how to contact me and I will get you in contact with Marisha. So thank you all for joining. And for those of you who joined late, we were talking about domestic violence tonight. We gave a little bit of education. We talked about warning signs to include jealousy, possessiveness, wanting to be with you constantly, controlling behavior. We talked about safety planning, right? Knowing your abuser's red flags. We talked about finding a place in your home with an exit, so a window or a door. So just areas in your home that are safe. We talked about having a code word with family, friends, co-workers, right? That phrase that when you use that phrase, they know to contact the police for you. We talked about an escape plan, so be ready to leave at moment's notice. We talked about keeping that car fueled up and keeping it ready to go, facing the exit of your driveway, have an extra spare key if needed. Have emergency cash and clothing and important documents over at a friend's house. And then practice your escape planning quickly and safely. Try to memorize some emergency contacts because, again, we have these cell phones now where we can just press a button and, call someone. So we want you guys to be safe. And more importantly, after you are out of that situation, we want you to stay out of it.
Yeah.
We don't want you to enter into another one. So
Let me add that when you say at a friend's house, make sure it's at a friend's house. He or she knows where they live.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. So try to make sure, guys, that that individual, the abuser, doesn't know, that friend or coworker.
Right.
All right. And then more importantly, we need you to be healed. Why do you have to be healed? Because you don't want to keep repeating the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you need to know your self-worth? I don't want you to keep repeating the cycle.
Right.
Because you are more valuable and you're worth getting healed. Mm-hmm. So Miss Pat says your 800 number. Let's see. I had it up earlier. If you guys watch this video again, you'll see the number kind of flash up on the screen. But I'll go back to it. Here it is. So it's actually a part of this video. 800-799-7233. 800-799-7233. If you want to get in contact with Marisha, again, just reach out to me and I will connect you to. If you have left an abusive relationship and you would like to talk to us about the associated grief and the pain that you are feeling, please reach out to us at foreverheal.com. We can do a consult with you as well. So thank you all for joining. Again, if you know someone who could benefit from this video, we ask that you please share it. Marisha, as always, as our guest, I'm going to allow you to have the closing comments.
My closing comments is just know your worth, love yourself, because if you don't love yourself, you can't love anyone else.
Amen. Well, we hope that this inspired you guys. We hope that it can bring some hope. And more importantly, we hope that it can bring some healing, to the land. God bless all of you. Hi, Tanya. Thanks for joining us tonight. And have a peaceful rest. God bless.
Thank you. God bless.